Hey folks, just wanted to push this out to you so that you could kind of look at your work and see how you did. I assumed a 5-second time for the period. This kind of depends on the battery condition of your particular game that you were playing on. So I just used 5, sort of middle of the road. The average angular speed, this thing goes 2 pi radians, in other words, 1 revolution in 1 period, 5 seconds. So on average, that's 1.3 radians that it turns through every second. And remember, radian is not really a unit. It's just telling you how we're measuring the angles. This next one, the radius of the inner fish, right around 2 centimeters. The outer, right around 8 centimeters, meaning that the arc length that they go through in 1 revolution would be about 12.6 centimeters and about 50.3 centimeters for the outer. Now the tangential speed, the fish on the inside and the outside might have the same angular speed, but they don't have the same tangential speed. The ones on the outside go faster. So here's one way you could do it. I took the distance they go in 1 revolution, and I took the time that it takes, and I divided them, and that gives me about 2.5 centimeters per second. Some rounding in there. Here's another, for the outer fish, it ends up being about 10 centimeters per second. But here's another way you can do this, and this equation is on your sheet. This equation, V equals R omega. That's saying that the tangential velocity of any particle on a rotating object is going to be whatever the angular speed is times the radius. Now, this will only work if you're using radians per second as units on that. Don't try using this equation using like revolutions per second or something like that. It will not work. So an alternative way of doing this, instead of just dividing distance by time, is to simply take the radius of the fish, or the fish's path, I should say, and multiply it by that angular speed of 1.3 radians per second. And you get about the same thing. There's some rounding differences. Your graphs. You should see some kind of familiar graphical relationships here. This is a angular position versus time graph. So its slope would represent the angular speed or the angular velocity. I'm assuming this is a positive angular velocity. So 1.3 radians, not per second squared, but per second. That's an oops on my part. The angular speed graph should be a pretty steady angular speed because it doesn't really speed up or slow down its rate of spin as it turns. So the slope of this graph would represent the angular acceleration, which is 0 because it's not changing its rate of spin. Now the area under this over 10 seconds should represent the angle that the thing turned through, which is 13 radians. You might have left yours in pi. And then down here, this is kind of a boring graph. There is no angular acceleration during the 10 seconds.